Hey guys, my name is August Sandberg. Welcome to the QUARTERDECK podcast. The wind that you might be hearing in the background is not an effect. It is blowing like crazy here today. I was just over and tied a few more lines and fenders to Isbjørn, who has returned to Bergen now from the Faroes and the Arctic, and is now looking forward to doing the Shetland race with me in 2 weeks' time. Today, Andy Schell and myself are discussing sailing at night versus sailing in daylight. This was a request that we received on the QUARTERDECK, our membership website, where we teach sailing through video, live streams, articles, and answer questions from our members, sometimes in the form of text and sometimes in the form of a podcast. Join us at quarterdeck.59-north.com for a 2-week free trial. Thanks for listening, have a great day, and hope to see you on the QUARTERDECK. How you doing today, Andy?
Good. Yeah, good. Sun is shining here again. We've had stupendously nice weather for like a month in Sweden. It's almost like getting to the point where you want a rainy day just because you're getting bored.
Yeah, we had our first rainy day today. Actually, it was quite nice with some rain. The bad thing is that the grass is going to start growing again, so
yeah,
got to bring the lawnmowers back out.
That's the downside of my nice like container window here. It's like a full height window. It's like in the wintertime when there's snow, it's beautiful, but now in the summertime, all I see is the grass getting too long.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The domestic chores just kind of staring at you through the window. That's right. That's always fun. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse having a home office. That's one of them. Cool. So we're talking about sailing in the dark today, which is a very fun topic. This was another question from the QUARTERDECK that was asked by Gert Folkertsma. I believe that's Dutch, so pardon my pronunciation there.
Sorry, I don't speak freaky deaky Dutch.
Yeah, the Dutch is a tough one. Well, anyway, question is, what are for you the differences between sailing during the day and at night in terms of experience, feeling, preparation, rules, strategy, ... And yeah, that's a pretty good one.
This is great because I like completely take this for granted because I've been sailing at night literally my entire life. And like just to start this off, a fun story. When I was a kid, we used to do these father-son sails on the Chesapeake on my dad's 36-foot ketch. And then we had like 8 guys. It was 4 dads and 4 sons. And my cousin and 2 of our best friends we grew up with. My dad's 3 best friends and all had sons at the same time. So we'd do these sailing trips in the summertime, starting when we were like 5 years old. And we used to be like to the dads, like, come on, can we go for a night sail? Can we go for a night sail? And like as a kid, it was like, yeah, of course. Why can't we go for a night sail? But now as a dad, at the moment, like all the dads wanted to do was sit around and drink beer on anchor and just like chill. And now all the kids are like, night sail, night sail, night sail. And they'd have to like put all the beer away, pull the anchor up and like, all right, we're going on a night sail. But that was like always such a cool adventure as like a 7-year-old, right? Like we're going on a night sail. It was great. So, you know, I don't know sailing, not sailing at night. So that's why I almost took me aback when I saw this question. I was like, wait a minute, who hasn't sailed at night? It's like, well, actually, lots of people that sail with us on our trips say they've never sailed at night, and that's one of the things they're looking forward to. So, yeah, great topic.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think it is easy to forget how different that is, or how alien it might be to a lot of even very experienced sailors. So, like you say, like for me too, it's just so second nature, having sailed so much up in the Arctic, also during both in the summer and during the winter time. It's like you just like don't get a choice. You don't have any choice in the matter. It's either daylight 24/7 or it's always dark. So
that's right. Yeah, because you used to do those winter trips up there looking for whales and stuff, and it was just dark.
That's right. Yeah, it's like dark always. So a lot of a lot of people are interested in these kind of tactics when they come sailing with me on Isbjørn, or like how things we want to get more into, I'm sure, but stuff like, do you time your landfall during the daylight, and like do you reef during the night, or like how do you set yourself up to like maximize the amount of stuff you get to do during the day? And to me, it's like I'm just used to not having a choice in the matter, and just do, because I've sailed so much where it's either or, and and then you kind of get very proficient at doing everything during the day and during the night, and I find that when you kind of get used to it, it's not very different. But that I do think that takes quite some experience to get to that level, I think.
So I've got another Moitessier quote for us again today that I've used this in several different articles I've written, and it's about night sailing, and it's also from Cape Horn, The Logical Route, which is my low-key favorite Moitessier book. But he wrote about the joy of sailing into harbor at night. Said, it's, quote, "It's wonderful to enter a harbor at night, 100 times better than in the day. For in daylight, you're always a bit inhibited by the presence of onlookers who might think that you want to show off or demonstrate how well you can handle a boat. You try in vain not to care, you still feel ill at ease. At night, on the other hand, everyone does his job without fuss because he likes doing it well, with the boat as the only witness." It's like Moitessier again, says it better than any of us.
Yeah, he knew what it was all about for sure. Yeah. So do you have a favorite, Andy, sailing in the night versus sailing during the day?
Well, it depends on what you're doing, but like philosophically, for sure at night. For sure at night. My favorite, this is actually the one thing, I think I mentioned this last week when we were talking about watch schedules. One thing I miss the most about the way we sail now, where there's always a lot of people up, is not having the solo night watches. Like, and sometimes I'll steal that from the crew, just be like, all right, everyone go down, this is my time, get away. And that to me, night sailing, even like coastal and stuff where there's like stuff, but especially offshore, sailing at night is like the full experience philosophically. It's like what I go to sea for. Because it's just a different feeling. There's, people are sleeping, it's quieter, you have more time to yourself. I remember this isn't even sailing, but I was taking a motorboat down the Chesapeake Bay on a short delivery from Annapolis down to Norfolk, and just like it was like a fall, I think it was in the fall. It was cold, and like standing in the wheelhouse with a cup of coffee in the middle of the night, just watching the ships go by, looking at the instruments, everything's kind of quiet. It's just like, it's the best. It's the reason everything's calmer. It's like philosophically, it's the reason I go, right? It's like the whole point.
Yeah,
it's more spiritual. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally. And just the stars and that you get to see out there is for me such a big one.
Yeah,
like you have just like the like how big the sky is. Like it's just so huge, and also if you're on a long passage, you kind of get to follow the movement of the planets and the moon and stuff, and you get to familiarize yourself with the stars, and it's just beautiful.
Well, how long? I often tell people, like, how often when in your like day-to-day life do you sit outside and just sit for 4 hours in the dark, like, and observe just the sky and whatever's going on? Like, you never do that. Why would you? So that part of it's neat. One of my favorite stories from a crew member, actually, from our very first ever 59 North trip on Eastbjorn from Annapolis to Lunenburg, we had this guy who was a bus driver from Canada. I tell the story a lot. He'd never sailed in his life before, but he read an article about how at sea you can see stars down to the horizon because there's no light pollution on a clear night. And he's like, I always wanted to see that. I wanted to see that. And I want to see that. I want to see what it's like before I learn how to sail. And then if I see it and if I like it, and if I like this sailing thing, then I'll go and learn how to sail. But first, I just want to see that. I want to experience it for myself. And I thought that was so beautiful.
That's great. That's very good. Yeah, I think it is very special. Like if even even from like the countryside and like online, even if there's not a lot of light pollution, just the fact that you don't have a horizon around you,
Yeah.
360 degrees, makes such a difference. So,
But the light pollution thing, it doesn't matter how far off the grid you are on land, there's always something. It's always something. And it's always shocking to me when you're at sea and actually shut down the instruments and turn all the lights off, how magnificent the night sky is. Even on the darkest dark night, it's unbelievable.
yeah, no, it is. It's just amazing. And
The last thing on the spirituality part of it and the philosophical part of it, like maybe some people don't experience this, but what I like the most about night sailing, I think, is it is almost a different way of experiencing consciousness. It's almost as if like you've taken LSD or something and I never have, but maybe I'm way off here, but like it's almost like you're experiencing a different form of reality because you're like your body's not used to being awake at that hour, so you're already feeling a little weird to begin with. And then you have all these different like sensory inputs that you're not used to. And oftentimes if I'm on a night watch alone, I'll put my headphones in and I'll listen to music. And then you also have this sort of like, you're deprived of the senses of the wind and the waves and stuff. And you got this music in, and music can make you very emotional as well. So like, there's often cases where I've gotten like had very emotional experiences sitting outside in the dark, looking at the stars and listening to a song that, makes me feel things. And it just feels like that's a different state of consciousness that you've attained in that sense. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's that is really beautiful, and I have the same experience. I remember when I was sailing east beyond down to the Caribbean from Annapolis, and Bandor was with me. We sailed down there together, and we were out in the cockpit and under the stars one night, and he had the guitar along with him. And he was serenading me under the stars there on the night watch out in the ocean. And that was, just like, this almost made me cry. It was so amazing. And like in any other setting, that would have been with, just distractions of everyday life surrounding us all the time. And that wouldn't have been as strong at all. But it's something about it for sure.
There's another similar story about that. One of my favorite stories to tell still is going down the Chesapeake, again on the Chesapeake. See, it doesn't even matter if you're offshore. My first time doing the Great Chesapeake Bay Schooner Race on Woodwind, we were leading the fleet, but the wind shifted overnight, and it was like a strong northerly, so it was downwind. So downwind, we were not one of the biggest boats. So you got Pride of Baltimore and Virginia, these giant 150-foot plus tall ships with square sails and stuff. Once the wind was from behind, they were just going to catch us up. And we're like, it's cold. It's like October. It's blowing like 30 knots, and we're hauling ass downwind. And my friend Rook, who was another deckhand on Woodwind, he was starting to like rattle off these sea shanties and stuff, and like that sort of special musical feeling. And then here comes Pride of Baltimore. You could just see, it was like a dark night. You could just see their navlights behind us. And then this silhouette they have like one square topsail. You could see their navlights and this silhouette of a square top. Looked like a freaking pirate ship. It was like the coolest. And there's Rook like doing these sea shanties, and here comes Pride of Baltimore passing us to windward, like a couple boat lengths away. You're like immediately transported to like the 1700s. It was amazing. It was so cool.
Oh, that sounds quite cool indeed.
And it made me wonder how many of your favorite memories have actually been at night, if you think about it.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a night owl, so and I believe you are too. And it is kind of it feels like a time that's sort of outside the rest of time. That's kind of a bonus time where some of the worries of everyday life kind of falls away, and you get to experience things kind of more. Just more present for it, I think. And
I agree completely. I didn't think we were going to take it this deep right off the bat here, but this is great. I love this.
Yeah, this was very very spiritual. That was great. Maybe we should go offshore sometime and like drop acid, Andy, and just see where that takes us.
I might never come back.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been very. Oh, sorry. Is there something calling somewhere?
No. Not on my end.
I'm sorry.
Is your phone ringing?
Slack. Oh, Adam's calling me on Slack. Sorry.
Oh, interruption from Adam. Sorry, Adam, you have to wait.
That's all right. If you had his mic ready, we should have we could have brought him into this. Cool. Yeah, I'll cut that out. But yeah, no, I think that would drop an acid out in the ocean would probably go against our safety standards.
We might have to go out and maybe just out in your little rowboat off of your house there with a line tied to shore.
That'd be good. Yep, I'm all for that.
Great.
Perfect.
All right, should we start talking? Should we talk about some practical stuff here?
Let's talk about some of the practical stuff. What is, we talked a lot about how great it is during the night. What are some things that are not so great about sailing at night?
Well, not so great. Usually, like I said, your body wants to be asleep, and until you get into the rhythm of the watch schedule, which we talked about last week, sometimes you are so tired that all that great stuff we just talked about doesn't matter because all you want to do is sleep.
Yeah,
I would say true. For me, that's the hardest thing about it is just the like heavy tiredness you can feel sometimes where, yeah, all you want to do is sleep. You can't appreciate any of that philosophical stuff.
That's true. And, it's also quite dangerous because if your watch falls asleep, that's you, crashing things and not listening to the radio or jibing or doing all sorts of stuff. So it's definitely something that might happen, and you get so tired often because it's so dark. There's very little stimulus, and it's definitely something to be aware of, just how tiring it can be.
I mean, until you get in tune with the boat and really start sailing and helming and trimming like instinctively, it's just objectively harder to do all those things because you can't see. I told you this story the other day about Tindra, which was Ice Bear before Ice Bear. It was Swan 59 that Mia and I met in the Ark for the first time. They had a group of Swedes sailing across the Atlantic in the Ark. And in summer in Sweden, as is for you in Norway, if you only sail in the summertime here, even if you sail around the clock, like I'm doing this Gotland Runt race, it's never dark. Like the sun goes down, but it's never fully dark. So you always have some extra help with trimming sails and with helming. And these guys on Tindro, like all of a sudden found that they could not steer to a compass course at night because they'd never done it before, even though they were all experienced sailors. And they were joking about this in St. Lucia, saying like, man, that was something we didn't expect. You have to sail in the dark. So like, it's one thing sailing to a compass heading in the daytime, and that's difficult as it is. But when you take your horizon away at night, it's even more difficult because you can very easily get disoriented as you're looking down and not paying attention. And there's some ways we can talk about how to like mitigate that feeling. But I think that's probably the single hardest thing about night sailing is actually driving the boat.
Yeah. That's because that's like your one data point often is that compass, and it can be very talking about disorienting if it's overcast and it's like one of those really dark nights. At least for me, like sometimes you get this feeling because the boat's heaving, right? It goes up and down through the waves, and suddenly you get this feeling that the boat isn't going up as much as it's going down. So you feel like the boat is just like going down, lumbering down a huge staircase, and you're just like going down into the abyss, or the other way, like you're going up, and you kind of it's very, very disorienting.
Well, those are like once you get over all this stuff, those are like the most fun when you have like when it's such a dark, overcast night that you have zero frame of reference outside of the boat. Those are like the coolest nights because it really feels like you're on a spaceship. You're just going through outer space, and then when you get the best time is that you get a night like that, and then you get dolphins that swim by the boat, and they have those comet tails from the phosphorescence, and you get like this crazy. I mean, you don't even need acid in that night. On a night like that, I mean, it's just the coolest thing. You get this so dark, you have no frame of reference, and all of a sudden you've got these, we call them electric dolphins, just streaking by the boat, and the boat's, the rudder's leaving a comet tail out the back. It's like, man, you want to be an astronaut. Like, there you go.
Yeah, that is, that's another thing. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. The phosphorescence, that's pretty cool. You're just in the heads there, and you're flushing your turd, and just like glows in the bowl there. It's just so beautiful.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
And then you have, trim and sails and stuff. You have to use headlamps which then kind of ruins your night vision, but also makes it more difficult to trim sails because you can only see, if you're using the telltales, you can only see the telltales on one side of the sail if you're shining a light on it. So like doing that kind of practical stuff becomes more, just objectively becomes more difficult at night. And I guess we'll talk about some of the ways to like make that easier.
Yeah. Do you, like, say you were going to reef the main or something during the night, how do you encourage just like full on light, or do you want to kind of try and preserve light discipline and use red lights and stuff like that?
I am of the opinion that I guess either I don't get affected that much or what, but like I think when you need a light, if you feel you need light, there's nothing that's going to replace a bright white light. And then you have to accept the consequences. It's going to take you a little time to readjust. But if you're out far offshore and there's, no dangers, there's nothing on the radar or whatever, like, does it really matter if it takes you 5-10 minutes to reacclimate? I would say no. So I think it depends on the scenario. And sometimes you just need a light to, like, if something gets tangled or whatever. And you're never going to get that with a red light. But I think normally we try to keep. I actually find that this was something I was going to say before about, like, especially navigating coastally. I think no light at all is almost better than even red light and white light, because like red light is fine for when you're using it, but if you look at someone that has a red headlight on, like even looking at that light is like jarring. So I think a lot of times, unless it's one of those really pitch black nights, there's enough ambient light to do most of the things you need to do without having any light at all. And I was going to say, when we get to like coastal navigation, I think the worst thing people can do, if you're coming in, like I remember we came into Barbados in the dark, and Barbados, there's no channel entrance. You just park up behind the island. And one of the crew got the flashlight out to look for mooring balls and stuff, and like that does not help at all. Turn those damn lights off. Once you get used to looking for objects in the water in the dark, they become very easy to see. You can spot the shadows. You can spot if there's like, if you're coming into a coast or whatever. So I think that's actually a major no-no, is like spotlighting objects. That never works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And yeah, I'm very much of the opinion that you should use, for maneuvers and stuff, you should just use as much light as possible. Turn the deck lights on, do everything, because it's so easy to make little mistakes when you don't have enough light. Like if you're doing something like a sail change or a reef or whatever, and you're kind of trying to preserve your night vision using red lights and stuff, you're going to get a line tangled around something, and then you're going to haul in that line and you can't see what's going on, and you're going to rip something, you're going to break something. And
yeah,
it's I think the risk of having an accident because you're not using enough light is much greater than the risk of having an accident because you ruin your night vision a little bit. But yeah,
I agree.
It depends on the situation and having that. Because flashlights can be very bad too, like you said. Like that's like when everybody gets their headlights out, and that's a skill. Like using a headlight without blinding people is really a skill that you should be very aware of, because that's just gonna piss people off and ruin your maneuver if you're just, because you instantly just like look at somebody's face when they're talking to you, and then now you're blinding them.
Yeah, exactly. So, if we pare down what you just said, you like to have all the light on, and I said sometimes I like to have no light at all. Yep. And I think those are like, in what circumstances? So when I'm on Falcon, anytime there's a maneuver happening on deck, 90% of the time I'm at the helm. Because when I'm at the helm, I'm then guaranteed that the boat's keeping a straight course and I can observe the whole thing. So in that case, more light the better, because I can't see anything from the observation point to see if anybody's going to make a mistake or put themselves in danger or break something or whatever. So in that case, more light the better. If I'm up on deck doing something myself, I tend to not use light or use red light because I'm more comfortable that I know what I'm doing. And then I will immediately turn on a white light if something doesn't go as I expected it to go. Like you have a better, when you know the boat and know what you're doing, you have a better feel for, are things moving smoothly, where things should go. If something gets hung up, you're not going to just wail on it. You're going to stop. So I think those two scenarios are slightly different depending on what's actually happening. Do you need to see or not?
That's true. Like for the two of us, we could have probably, sailed east beyond together blindfolded. Like we just like wouldn't have need to see at all. So that's, that's certainly a big one. So yeah, coming into port, that reminds me of you coming into Barbados. There, I was I'm often asked by the crew especially when we do the ETA game before a passage, like we're trying to guess when we're going to arrive. And invariably somebody says like, oh, I think maybe we'll come in, like my math has us come in like 10 p.m. But that can be like, we wouldn't be arrived. We wouldn't do that, right? We wouldn't come into port, a strange new harbor at night, would we? And I always do. Do you ever time your arrivals like so that you'll arrive during the daytime?
I love coming in at night, so I never have had to.
Just
but exactly. I never have had to, but there are certain instances where I would. But in the places I've sailed to, there's never really been an incentive not to come in the dark because it's been safe. But I think we need to talk about what those criteria are, I guess.
Yeah. I've never done that either. I've done it a couple of times just because it's cool. I did it in when we came to Bermuda from the Caribbean on East Beyond back in 2021. We hove to for a little bit just because the crew wanted to see the cut going in there. So we did that. That was fun. And then, but there are a couple of times where I think it would have made sense because and one time jumps out at me here. It was last year when I was sailing down the coast of Norway on East Beyond, and we had our eyes set on this little tiny island just out in the ocean, just like an old fishing village. Super tiny island, but full of houses, and looked pretty had a strong breakwater and a good harbor and everything. So right, yes, this looks great. We'll go there. And the wind slowly died on us. We're like ghosting along at like 3 knots, and we arrive in the dead of night. And this place doesn't have any electricity. Like nobody lived there anymore. Like this used to be like a very thriving fishing community back in Rust was the island, if anybody's aware, and it was pitch black, and there was like there was no electricity on the island. It was absolutely black. There was nothing, and we would like slowly motor onto this island with our lights, and like suddenly like you almost had to like feel your way into the harbor because it was so freaking dark. And that was very challenging. That was very tough because like you have lights on the boat, but they do have their own problems with blinding you, like you said, and even using lights outboard, you're presented with a very two-dimensional picture of things, and we're trying to find like a very small entrance into a great black breakwater to find your entrance to a harbor. That was very tough. That was very challenging. I actually made a full seamanship scenario video of this.
Oh, cool!
On the quarterdeck. So if any members are interested, you can go to the seamanship scenario tab there on the quarterdeck and find it. And if you're not a member, you can sign up, get your 2-week free trial, and watch that all for free. So
there you go.
Go ahead.
Well, so what just came to mind there is like what I said about coming into Barbados. There was so much ambient light from the lights on shore that you could very easily see the other anchored boats and what was going on. In your case, and it was also a starry night, so like you had ambient light from that. In your case, like the no electricity thing, that's tricky. But what brought to mind is there's a pretty challenging harbor entrance up in St. Pierre, up off the coast of Newfoundland. It's a French island off the coast of Newfoundland that we've transited through many times.
We sailed in there together actually on
correct,
Iceberg.
We did. Now the day we sailed in there, it was crystal clear and you could see. But several times I've been in there, not only has it been dark, but it's been foggy. So like. What we're talking about here, do you make landfall at night? we should almost rephrase that. Would you make landfall in limited visibility or low visibility? Because like some of the fog up there, it's worse than being dark. Because even if there are lights, you can't see them.
Yeah.
And that even if it's daylight, so like that makes compounds another thing. Our first time ever into St. Pierre, I've got some great pictures of this. Coming in and it's dark. It's like starting to get light. It's maybe like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's just starting to get light, but it's so foggy that you were just in like a purple soup. Because like the daylight was just coming, so the sky's kind of dark purple, but it's just like purple soup, and you couldn't see anything. And we're navigating in on GPS and radar, and it was flat calm. In that case, it was fine. So I think if we look at like some criteria, when do you come into a challenging harbor in the dark or without being able to see? One of the things that occurred to me that rarely has happened is I've never had a night landfall in a place that's got a lot of current. And I think that would amplify the challenge because like you're not going to sense what the current's doing to the boat as well as you will in the daytime because you've got no visual references. So I would say like avoid night or limited visibility landfalls if there's any strong currents because you can get into trouble real quickly there even if you do everything else right.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I second that. I did that once. It's a very scary time. I was coming into what is that? It's kind of a bit further west from Brest, up in Brittany, and we're coming in, and it was night, and we're sailing in there, and I was looking at the coast, and it was very dark, so you can only like see the silhouette of the coast, and I was like, wow, that's like. It looked like we were a lot closer to the shore because the land was passing us so quickly. It's like, damn, I thought we were like, it looks like we're quite far away. I mean, it just shouldn't be passing. It looks like we're so close. And I looked down at the, at our log, and we were doing 14 knots. We're like, holy shit! All right, we had no idea there was any currents there at all. And,
that's like one of the most notorious places in the world for hard tidal streams.
Yes, it's it was a very very stupid thing to do, and we were we made a very fast passage of it, but that was definitely quite sketchy. So I second that. Be aware of that stuff.
I also think like there's a pretty common landfall in the Abacos in the Bahamas where you've got to navigate like through a reef entrance. And I can't recall if it's marked or not, but like that's a sense where if there's any wind and there's breaking waves on the reef, you're not going to see that at night. You want to like anytime you need to like you actually need to navigate visually. And I think we're going to, if we do this same podcast again in a year or two after we've done the Pacific, I think I'm going to have a lot more things to say because there's going to be a lot of reef passages and stuff to navigate where you need to be able to navigate visually. And that, therefore, you need daytime. The Bahamas, you get this a lot because there's like a lot of coral heads, shallow water. You need to be able to see what is under the boat to navigate, and you just physically can't do that at night, and you can't trust the charts, and nothing's marked. So in those cases, like you got to be way more conservative. But most of the landfalls we have made on our 59 North trips are relatively straightforward and deep, so it's not much of a thing. I will say though, like it does affect coming in at night affects like your choices of where you're going to go. So I remember coming into Orkney when we were on the first time we went to Svalbard. So 2018, we sailed from west coast of Sweden to Orkney, and we came in just as it was getting dawn, so it was dark. And you come in, and when it's dark and you're looking for like an anchorage, we were trying to find an anchorage because we were early before we went into town. One of the neatest things and also like the funny things is you navigate your way into an anchorage. You're using the charts, you're using the depth sounder, you're using any marks, whatever. You think you find a good spot, you anchor, and you wake up and you realize you're like a mile from shore.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're so much closer when in the dark because you don't have the depth perception the same way. And you wake up like, oh, wow, this place is way bigger than it looked when we came in here at night. So you're going to be more conservative, especially if you're coming into like an anchorage like that, where you're not going to tuck into the nice little hidey hole if you can't see anything. So you might anchor further out and then relocate when it gets daylight again. So, you might do it in stages.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a classic feeling. Like you come into some anchorage at night and you're feeling, pretty high, your shoulders are pretty high up and you're pretty stressed going in. And then you wake up the next morning and you look around. It's like, oh, Okay, we were pretty safe all
Well, that's also one of the neat things. Like coming into Lunenburg for the very first time in 2011 on our way across the Atlantic with Arcturus. My mom and dad were on the boat. We sailed up from Newport, and we came into Lunenburg in the dark. And Lunenburg is one of those harbors that you can navigate in the dark. Well, it's often foggy there, so sometimes you have to. But it's very well marked, and it's a very straightforward entrance, and it's a pretty wide open harbor you can anchor. And we came in there in the dark, and the boat was set up such that the boat only had 4 bunks on it to begin with, and one of the bunks was filled with gear. So we only had 3 places to sleep, but we were 4 people on the boat. So my dad just took his sleeping bag and slept out in the cockpit. And we had gotten in at like 3 a.m. Everybody was super tired. And then like at 7 o'clock, my dad we'd been asleep for 3 or 4 hours. My dad opens the hatch. He goes, Gail, like whispering, trying to like not wake anybody up. Gail, you got to come out here. You got to see this. It's so cool. It's so cool. Because like we didn't see anything coming in. So he wakes up and Lunenburg's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the town. It's like this beautiful, colorful fishing village, schooners all along the wharf. It's still, I've said this before, it's my all-time favorite harbor. And my dad was so excited to see it for the first time that he's like, couldn't let anybody sleep. He's like, you got to come out here and see it. And that's one of the neat things about making landfall at night is you get this ta-da kind of like feeling when you wake up the next morning.
Yeah, absolutely. That is that's really cool. I'll say sometimes I feel like it's easier to navigate at night too. Like if in a couple of instances, I feel like coming in coastal or offshore, it can be better to go sailing at night because you can navigate by lights. I remember when I grew up on fishing boats mainly that we had here around the fjords, and I remember we were doing a lot of trips in the summer and stuff with just the family with our little fishing boat, and we didn't have a chart plot or anything, so we used paper charts. And going by night, you could just like bounce from one sector light to the next, and you would know exactly where you were on the charts. Super easy piloting. That's a lot tougher during the day because you don't have those. And so that I remember was really neat.
That, I think, yes, I agree with that to an extent, and depending on experience. Because, like, conversely, if you're coming into the Chesapeake Bay in the dark, at the mouth of the Chesapeake in Norfolk, I don't know if you've ever done that, but
But I haven't arrived. Yeah.
There are so many lights that it is overwhelming. And then you've got the mixture of navigational lights and city lights, and the bridge is all lit up, and then there's a tunnel that you've got to go over, and there's like diverging channels. There's one channel that's lit that goes off this way. There's another channel that goes this way. There's so much, and there's tons of traffic, ships moving around. There you see a red light. Oh, that's a red light because that's the port light on a big ship that's coming at you. And I mean, like that is next level kind of stuff. And I think you get the same sort of thing at different places, like in the English Channel and like around, I imagine, different, industrial ports that have lots of channels and stuff. And that's a skill where you have to be able to, like, your brain needs to be able to filter out the background noise of all these other lights from the lights that actually matter, and then being able to properly identify them and being able to count the flashes, and was that 5 seconds or was it 3 seconds, and reminding yourself what is some of those little symbols on the chart mean for, what is a isophase light? What the hell does that mean again? Shit. So I think there's an argument there that it goes both ways, but like it's a skill that you need to have as well, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like jumping into that, just blind wouldn't be that easy, I don't think. And
'cause like
light pollution ruins our day.
And like going up, not just getting to the mouth of the bay, but like if you're trying to do the length of the bay, like if you're trying to get from Norfolk to Annapolis, it's going to take you 24 hours. You can't do it only in daylight unless you stop. So if you're going to do it nonstop, you have to do it at night. And that what I just said, the whole way up the bay is like that. There's lights everywhere because you've got these side channels and rivers and tugboats and all this other stuff. So there's a lot going on. And that was actually, I did, talking about night sailing, cool night experiences. I got to ride along on that big container ship or cargo ship with Mark, our pilot friend. Mia and I went up to the C&D Canal, and we boarded this ship in the middle of the night and got to come down the bay at night on this big ship.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
It was so cool. And like, you think those shipping channels are narrow when you're in a 30-foot sailboat, and then you get into a 1,000-foot container ship, and watching how those guys maneuver that thing down those twisty channels at 9 knots is like unbelievable. And it's all manual. It's all by hand. They're just, one light to the next. Okay, right 10 degrees rudder, left 10 degrees. It's crazy.
That's pretty intense. Man, that's so cool. That's I'm jealous of that. That must have been quite the experience.
That was awesome. One of the neatest things I've ever done in my maritime career. Wow. I loved it.
Fantastic. Speaking of shipping channels at night, and another instance where I think night sailing can be very practical is I've been through the English Channel, sailed through the whole thing twice without AIS.
Oh, wow.
And when you do that, it's very, very scary because you see all around you see these massive, massive ships, container ships, cargo ships. And just every once in a while, one of them will suddenly just zoom past you out of the horizon. And it can be very, very tough to orient yourself during the day when you can't see their lights, because you have no idea which ship is pointing towards you, who's going away from you, how trying to calculate any possible collision courses is super hard during the day. And so we breathed a sigh of relief every time the sun went down and the navlights came on, because suddenly we could see where all of these great big looming shadows were pointing. We instantly knew where they were going. So that was also another instance where night sailing was easier than
That's a good point. And even with AIS, I always brief the crew on our trips that if you see something at night, this is kind of a trick question. I'll ask them, if you see another ship, what's the first thing you do? And inevitably people say, oh, look at AIS. It's no, you just stop and observe. Just observe, what's going on. And a part to that, observe and keep our boat going on a straight line. Because then you can see, okay, what lights do I see? And what do I think is happening here? And try and figure that out before you immediately consult the AIS. Because big ships especially that have 2 steaming lights, one steaming light at the back is always higher than the one at the front. So if that's all you see, you will immediately know which direction the ship is pointing. And to your point, that makes it so much easier. And just, training yourself to notice those things before you immediately consult the electronics, I think is really good exercise. What else was I was going to say something else. Oh yeah. So this begs the question: do you need to know what all those light things mean? Do you memorize the rules of the road? Do you know what all the different light signatures and stuff mean?
Oh, no, I don't. I know there's a couple. Red over red, the captain's dead.
That's right.
Which is a vessel not under command.
Red over white.
Fishing at night.
Fishing at night. White over red.
Pass.
Pilot ahead.
Ahead. There
pilot boat.
Nice.
So there's a few you memorize, but yeah, I don't think somebody going into this should think before they go night sailing they have to memorize all the light signatures. But you should carry the rules of the road book with you so that if you do see something that's not familiar, because the chances, I guess this changes if you're coastal or on the bay. You're not going to see a dredger offshore that has all these weird lights, but you will on the bay. So be comfortable with the things that you're most likely to see, and then anything you see, it's wait, what is that? Have the book handy and look it up.
Yeah. We when East Beyond, there's a neat little table underneath the nav desk top, which is quite handy for reference. So it's a good idea to have that somewhere, or in the heads where you can just drill some of them. It's pretty good.
We should talk about we covered a little bit of this, but sail handling and driving the boat. Like I said, there's we could talk about if driving the boat, especially offshore, is the harder thing to do at night. What are some ways to make it easier?
Yeah, that's a good one. It is that difficulty of relying solely on the compass. I think if you can find any other reference to help you out, it's a good idea. That sailing by a star is really neat if there is any. Just having the stars out really makes you makes it a lot easier in general, just because you can kind of have some reference to what you're doing. So I would say,
and it doesn't even have to be in front of you. It's obviously easier if there's a star straight ahead of you, but like you could have a very distinct constellation sort of in line with the end of the boom and just keep it there. Like it's a relative thing. But obviously if you've got a star sort of somewhere straight ahead of you, that's like the best. The other thing to do if you got on an overcast night, the problem with steering the compass is unless you're really used to it, people tend to stare at the compass and then you're looking down. And it's a lot harder to steer when you're looking down than it is when you're looking ahead. So we'll often change one of the instruments, which is sightline more in front. We'll change it to a digital heading display on one of the instruments that's at like the companionway. And now you can then sail to that number. It's the same thing as sailing to a compass. It's just digital instead of analog. It takes a little bit to get used to, but you can do that both daytime and at night. And it basically keeps your gaze pointed forward instead of down. And also, even if you are steering to a star, instead of then looking down to reference the compass to make sure you're still on the correct star, you just glance. You can almost see both of those things in the same field of vision by having one of the instruments set to the heading sensor.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That was a trick we actually learned from KB. KB teaches, like when he coaches racing sailors, they often sail to a heading sensor, which is either at the companionway or the mast. And ever since he told me that, we've been doing that.
Yeah, that's neat. I kind of feel that it's much easier to use a compass just because it's a mechanical fluid thing and you can see it moving along with the boat, whereas the digital readout is more like there's 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees.
I agree with you.
But I think, there's definitely advantages to that. I also think that just because some people get very focused on that compass needle and tend to oversteer a lot. And sometimes I tell people, especially if we're going upwind, just to close their eyes. Just kind of, if I see them like just way too focused on where that compass needle is at, just tell them to close their eyes and just rely more on the feeling of the boat. And especially upwind, that is quite easy. And you'll notice, if you just take your eyes off the compass, you can tell very quickly if the boat's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that actually is especially good on if you have a more modern boat with 2 wheels and you have one of those really wide sterns. You really tell that because you'll, if the heel of the boat's going to be so much more noticeable because your whole body is going to be raised or lower depending on what course you're at. So
That's true. Well, that's we always joke, like, especially upwind, if someone's having a hard time steering and then you just like, you get the boat on course and then lock the helm and just say, just watch, like the boat will steer itself. Like you're way overdoing it. But I think that is it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like learning how to steer by feel and all that stuff. Same thing with like sail trimming. Like sail trimming at night is difficult because you can't, like I said before, you can't see the outside telltales. So that's a case where you've got to just, when in doubt, let it out. Learn to ease the sails until they just start luffing and then bring it back in again. And that can be applied to day or night, but it's harder at night because you can't see it as easily. And I think what happens also at night is people tend to do less. So if they're really actively trimming sails in the daytime because it's easy to see, there's a tendency to just kind of ignore sail trim at night, which once in a while I think you should, check sail trim and be doing that. That should be just a standard part of the watch rotation is check sail trim because things change.
Yeah, that's true.
It's easier to ignore it at night because you can't see it.
Yeah, that's right. And you're tired. You often have less people on deck, and it's that can definitely happen. I think one of the scariest things about, or one of the most dangerous things about sailing at night is that everything, like it tends to, all of your feelings, like we've talked about, is very much. Everything you feel everything a lot stronger. And I think that same thing goes for scary and horrifying stuff as well. I think I would love to see some statistics on how many Mayday calls are made from boats during the night and how many are made during the day. Because I think it's the same thing coming into a harbor or an anchorage at night, like you're very stressed out, like we said, and then when the sun comes up, you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't really as dangerous as it is. And I think, the waves look a lot bigger. You feel that isolation a lot more. Everything is just a lot scarier. And what really opened my eyes to this was this podcast I did with Bill Hutton, who they had a force day failure at sea, and we recorded a podcast on that, which was great. And there's a lot to get into there, a lot of leadership issues, and this was not like solely a day versus night issue, but essentially they lost their force day, and they ended up abandoning the boat without even. The mast was still standing, and they abandoned the boat even without checking what had happened up there. And it might have been as easy as just putting another clevis pin in there and off you go. And so I'm pretty convinced that if that incident had happened during the day, they probably wouldn't have called Mayday immediately, and they would have found the way to save that situation, or at least that they might have. So, and especially if the weather is rough and there's a lot of big waves out there, I do think like the waves just feel a lot bigger, and that's actually another big safety concern in itself. If you're running surfing down big waves, suddenly you can't see the waves anymore coming at you. That's a big one. When the only thing telling you that there's a big wave coming for you is that you could hear it breaking. Behind and above you, and you're surfing down these huge waves, just holding on for dear life, and you just can't see anything. That can be very, very scary if you're not used to it, and even if you are used to it. So,
well, a reminder there that like you can always stop, heave to, reset. And I am reminded this was not scary for me, and not scary objectively, but subjectively. Going out to Bermuda from Key West, 2019, I think. It was upwind the whole way, and it wasn't even that windy. It was blowing like 20 knots, moderate sea state, but Ice Bear was like dialed in, and we were crashing and banging our way to windward, making like 8.5 knots, like really going hard. And it just got to the point where the watch that was on that were driving, they were just like, I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm losing my focus here. This is scary for me. So we hove to. It was like 3 a.m. and said, all right, we'll heave to. Everybody can chill. We'll reset. And then when the daylight comes, you realize the waves aren't as big as they feel. The boat's not going as fast as it feels. The wheel's not as hard as it feels. And you reset. And that's just an easy way to do that. Just remind yourself, you don't have to fight it. You can reset. So if it gets extra scary at night, stop.
That's that's good advice. I think before you make any big decisions during the night, I think it's a great idea to just wait for daylight, to see how it feels. You can get a good look at things, and off you go.
So Garrett also mentioned in here, are there any rules for night sailing? And I think the big one for me is I'm fairly adaptable to like the PFD tether rules in the daytime, but not at night. Nighttime, it's PFD and tether clipped on all the time, no question about it. Because the consequences of a mistake at night are so much higher, and you're so much more likely to make a mistake because of all these other factors. So that's a hard and fast rule at night. That's probably the only hard and fast, like absolute rule we have is always clipped in at night, no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not so flexible on that. I tell everybody to clip in all the time, but maybe not coastally and stuff. But yeah, no, for at night. Definitely. That finding somebody in the water again at night, that's going to be very much harder than during the day. Maybe except if they have a light. Maybe that's the same, that they're back to the navigational lights. Maybe it's actually easier to pick somebody back up if they have a light and it's...
Yeah, but now you're back to at night everything is scarier, and I think that just overcomes any of that. Just don't go overboard. Don't go overboard. A day or night. You go overboard, you're dead. That's what I tell people.
Agreed, for sure. Yeah, that's very true. Cool.
What else are we missing? I think that was pretty. I think that's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think I hope we answered Gert's question and put some fun sea stories in there too. So that's nice. Made me man, I want to go sailing now. I'm very very jealous of Espion, who's going to Fair Isle today.
Man, that's your all-time favorite landfall, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think they're gonna have a blast. So.
Do they have the weather to get in there?
Yeah, seems quite good. So
wow,
yeah, that'll be.
Well, I just finished the work on on Spica's new boom yesterday, so finally we can put the sails on, and I'm hoping to go out for the first test sail this week sometime, maybe Thursday.
Right. Nice. Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Andy. This was really fun.
All right, Skipper. Good talking to you. See you next week.
Do we know what
we're going to talk about next week?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
If we'll take another question off the quarterdeck. There's a ton of good ones. So quarterdeck members, go in and submit your question, and we might pick yours.
Cool. Thanks a lot, August. It's fun.
Thanks. See ya. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to join the Quarterdeck, go to quarterdeck.59-north.com. The Quarterdeck podcast is produced by August Sandberg for 59 North. Music is by the Storm Weather Shanty Choir.